Perhaps you too saw the pictures of the protesters being dragged in their wheelchairs out of Senator Cory Gardner's office last night, and perhaps you also thought, did they really think that their sit-in was going to change his vote on the health care bill? Just out of jail today, one of those protesters pointed out to us, police took them to a bus with a wheelchair lift. And she asked us, how do you suppose those ever came about?
Ladies and gentlemen, our office and the building are now closed for the night. The building management has informed us today that we are in violation of our lease by allowing you to remain in the office any further. From this point forward, you can no longer remain in our office or the building. Our staff also need to exit the office. If you require any transport to get home, we are happy to help direct you to public transit options or to arrange for private wheelchair accessible transportation for you as well. But you can no longer remain in our office at this time.
We'd rather go to jail than die here.
And with that, 10 activists went to jail, including Carrie Ann Lucas, who talked with our producer Katie Wilcox outside the jail while waiting for the other 9 to be released.
Did you know yesterday that you might go to jail for this?
Well, we knew that from the time we went in. It's always a possibility when you're protesting and we're holding a sit-in like that. But this is too important and too critical, and people's lives will be lost. People will die unnecessarily.
Do you think going to jail worked?
We've seen it work many times. Last night, I was arrested and I was put on an RTD bus that had a lift. We're coming up next week on the 39th anniversary of a protest that shut down the intersection of Colfax and Broadway for 2 days to fight to get lifts on buses, on RTD buses.
That protest is credited with helping to start the Americans with Disabilities Act and getting ramps on RTD buses. This week, disability rights activists with the group ADAPT held sit-ins at Senate offices across the country, leading to dozens of arrests. And today, Democratic Lieutenant Governor Donna Lind sent the group this letter, saying that the health care bill, as is, would ultimately cost Colorado $1.5 billion in Medicaid funding, but offering no specific details on how that would happen. The governor's office believes that the bill is going to force higher premiums, or lesser services, or perhaps both. Republicans have long fought to reduce the number of able-bodied people who are on Medicaid in order to lower the deficit. Denver's homeless population is growing, and at the same time, a shelter is closing, a center designed specifically for young people without a home. They told our Steve Stager the number of kids needing help now is forcing them to change the way they operate.
The streets are a very dangerous place for our youth.
In a treacherous place, the spot was somewhere to escape, if just for a few hours.
This was a place for youth to come in the morning and get a hot breakfast.
Notice the past tense.
We had a perfect storm of some challenging situations happen.
The storm consists of several parts. First, declining federal funding. Second, safety.
There's fewer places that homeless people can go now, and so they're kind of all being compressed into smaller areas.
That means more and more of other homeless populations hanging around the spot.
Homeless adults began to hang out around our buildings and mingle with the youth and engage them in unproductive activities.
It was a perfect storm that became more of a lesson than a deterrent.
We pretty much let anybody in the door who met our age requirements.
Before the spot closed down because of all that back in April, only about 25% of the teens who went there took part in Urban Peak's services like anger management classes and other programs meant to get people back on their feet. Now the group plans to reopen its drop-in facility with a little change.
It'll be a little bit higher barrier. Youth who do come in will have to engage in other services.
Urban Peak plans to open the spot again in a couple of weeks. This time, teens will have to sign a contract promising to take part in their classes and programs with the goal of getting off the streets. All of Urban Peak's other services, including its shelter and temporary housing units, will run like always.
Our next question came from every direction today, email, Facebook, and on Twitter, where the Wilderness asked, hey, next, any info on Colorado's plans to turn over voter information to Trump's fraudulent voter fraud commission? All right, so let's tackle this in 2 parts. First, President Trump's voter fraud commission. Remember now, Colorado's former Secretary of State, a Republican, did a widespread search for voter fraud. It resulted in 1 conviction. The president's looking for evidence to back up his unsupported claim of 3 to 5 million illegal votes. And he's certainly welcome to look, just like he's welcome to spend money on unicorn traps or asteroid deflecting helmets for every American. Now to Colorado's role in this. Colorado's Secretary of State is following the law by providing public voter records to the Trump administration, just like they would have to provide those records to you or to me if we asked. That's what public record means. Now, Democrats are attacking Secretary of State Wayne Williams because he's a Republican and because they oppose President Trump. Those aren't valid reasons to ignore Colorado's open records laws. Those laws protect your right to know. If the state denies someone's right to know based on their politics or based on your politics, that's a scary situation. Here's the deal. If you don't want voter records to be public, convince the state legislature to change the law. But don't lean on the government to deny open records to the people you don't like. All right, you can win a bet with your friends, I promise you. Just ask them to name Denver's busiest travel day of the year. It's not around Thanksgiving or Christmas. It's today. An estimated 197,000 passengers. That is larger than the population of Fort Collins. 1.3 million people are expected for the extended holiday weekend. And they will all hear a woman's voice firmly admonish them about delaying the departure of DIA's trains. Here again with that is Steve Stager.
So I spend a lot of time in the field, as you know, and when I'm out there, a lot of people ask me, what's it like to work with Adele Arakawa?
Please watch your step.
Well, I guess one way I would put it, familiar. Oh, hi, Adele.
Please keep clear of the doors. You are delaying the departure of this elevator.
She has a very commanding personality. So how's it going?
Hold on, please. We are approaching the second floor.
That's what it is, the DIA train. That's where I recognize her from. Anything fun planned for retirement?
The door is closing. This train is departing.
Adele, I'm gonna miss you like heck. You've been a pleasure to work with. You've made me a better journalist, a better person. Happy retirement.
Please hold on. This train is departing.
DIA says they'll eventually use a different voice on the train, but for now, Adele will remain a guiding voice in all our lives. Her final newscast is tonight at 10 o'clock. May I make a recommendation? Point you towards something that isn't from Next, but I promise you it's awesome. Adele's Meatloaf. No, other Adele, other meatloaf. It's the news legend's legendary recipe. I can vouch, it's delicious. Bison, onion, garlic, salt, pepper, red pepper, chili powder, ketchup, eggs, and it's just getting started. Adele says her famous recipe mirrors her approach to life. Add all the spice you want, don't forget the most important ingredients, and enjoy to the fullest. The full recipe that we've mentioned on air for years is posted in the next section of 9news.com. This 12-year-old Coloradan conquered the Grand Canyon in a kayak.
So the Grand Canyon is known for its monstrous white water.
A government bailout for some special license plates deemed too big to fail. Next. Perhaps you heard us mention that the DMV planned to stop selling Rockies, Nuggets, and Avs license plates in July because there wasn't enough demand for them. Well, now a twist from our Brandon Riddiman.
More than a dozen license plates faced extinction for not selling to at least 3,000 people. The DMV used to enforce this pretty strictly. The plates got one grace year after their deadlines, and then they stopped issuing new ones. But now that 3 of the big 4 sports teams are on the chopping block, the DMV became suddenly flexible. It's taking advantage of the fact that the laws on these plates say the DMV may stop printing them, but not that they must. The deadline for some of the plates was tomorrow, so you can call this one a license plate buzzer beater.
Along with the Nuggets, the Avs, and the Rockies plates, Girl Scouts plates and State Park license plates will also be spared by the new policy.
All eyes on the holiday weekend, and so far so good. If you're kicking off the festivities tonight, it's comfortable out there in the 70s. Denver, Boulder, Fort Collins, and Greeley. Nothing but sunshine after we kicked off the day with some drizzle out there, a little bit of fog, low clouds. Well, this afternoon into this evening, the view's stunning in the Boulder area. Right now on HD Doppler 9, not much going on in the metro area, but still a few strong storms across south central Colorado. So if you're taking a drive along I-25 south into New Mexico near Trinidad, you might find 1 or 2. Again, the storm's winding down overnight, and into tomorrow morning we wake up nothing but sunshine. Things are looking good. Storms will be forming. However, they primarily stay to the southern side of the state. Here in town, I think we should be all right. Maybe 1 or 2 creeping in across the Palmer Divide around 7, 8 o'clock. Otherwise, it looks fairly nice. We're going to be back to the 80s, upper 80s at that. Around the Front Range, the far eastern plains, the warm-up is on. But if you're searching for the cooler weather, how about the high country where they will be in the mid-70s? The heat rolls on. We're back to the lower 90s on Sunday. We'll also have a better shot at seeing just a couple of thunderstorms. And then looking ahead toward the 4th of July, the 90s, they're here. So is the sunshine, and it sticks around till next weekend.
The words of a proud mom after her 12-year-old did something astonishing.
The whitewater is humongous, and it's a long ways. It's 26 days in the remote wilderness.
And each week, you have the final word with your good news. Next. Ready to feel lazy and inadequate? A 12-year-old girl who's originally from Boulder kayaked the entire Grand Canyon a few months ago, and she did it in a tiny pink boat. Our Ann Herbst talked to her about making history.
I just love the water. I've always loved the water. I'm Abbie Holcomb. I'm 13 years old, and yeah.
I'm Peter Holcomb. I'm Abbie's father.
I am Kathy Holcomb. I'm Abbie's mom.
Yeah, we had a pretty special March.
In March, we went down the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon, all 280 miles. It was a dream trip for our family. We waited 8 years to get a permit to be able to do that.
When we won our permit, it was kind of the obvious thing. It was like, well, gosh, Abbie, you want to paddle it, right? And she's like, of course, you know, she loves kayaking. We didn't want to put any pressure on her, but it was like, let's go in there and paddle what you want.
So the Grand Canyon is known for its monstrous whitewater, and it's a long ways. It's 26 days. And then to add another layer on top of that, my then 12-year-old daughter was planning to kayak it in her own little 5-foot kayak. Woo! Watching her as the waves got bigger and bigger every day and we progressed through these harder rapids was really extraordinary. You know what? The worst thing that's going to happen is I'm going to flip. And so I guess I thought a little too much about flipping. She only flipped twice in the rapids, and it was in the same rapid. Like, it was like a fish just punched the bottom of the kayak, and my heart stopped. And it felt like I was sinking almost. She rolled up at the bottom, all smiles and cheering. It was a really big moment in the canyon because I really understood that I could do anything. Let me just tell you, it's cold water. Brr. But as far as we know, she is the youngest to do every inch of the 280 miles.
That wasn't really our goal going into it, but it worked out that way.
Well, it's kind of cool that I'm one of the youngest to do it, but it's kind of sad at the same time that there aren't a ton of kids that have done it.
And I kind of wish that a lot of more kids would be able to experience it like I have.
Two notes. Abbie was 12 when she took the trip. She's now 13. And no, we didn't send Ann Herbst into the canyon with the Holcombs. Abbie's parents are professional photographers. That was their footage you saw there. It is your good news and your kind words for my friend Adele Arakawa. Next. It's Friday, where your good news washes away all the negative headlines of this week.
Look! It's a truck! Wow!
Enjoy the time with the kids. It's priceless. You don't get this time back. I mean, you might as well spend it wisely. They grow so fast.
This is kind of a regular spot that we come on hot days for this. He's quite the character. He's always staying busy somehow, entertaining people, moving around.
My kids FaceTime me, so we do talk, but when they come home, it's like, okay, what do you want to do? We got to make a list. And we try and cram so much into so little time. And her one thing that she put on the top of her list was coming up to the Denver Zoo.
I wanted to see Dobby. He's so cute.
Hello! There they go!
Hopefully this will be one of their best summers.
When the girls were little, instead of going to Cheyenne Mountain, we always came up to the Denver Zoo.
Did you find a track? He has a huge imagination too. I want him to be in nature as much as possible, and so every day that we're able to get out and just play and be outside and be in the sun is just another celebration for us in his book of his life, I guess.
For me, it's just another day in the park.
Hello! How are you?
Hashtag thank you, Adele, from Deanna. Such a great role model for women in media. From Cindy, thank you, Adele, for your optimism and steadiness. You made me believe things were going to be okay. Nate, our friend from the A-Line train, thank you, Adele, for being the region's voice and for the standard of excellence you leave behind. And from Melissa Gutierrez, thank you, Adele, for being a role model for minority girls that didn't see many people that looked like them on TV 20 years ago. Please join Adele and I at 10 o'clock tonight. I'll see you next time here.